House. So here now with more, Jason Chaffetz, former House Oversight Chairman. He's now a Fox News contributor. And Zach Pecanis, former senior DNC advisor, who also worked on the Clinton campaign. Zach, so let me go to you first and get your reaction to all of this.
I mean, look, I think that it is really unfortunate that it's coming, that this book is being put out right before the election. I mean, I was one of the Clinton campaign staffers that wrote a letter that talked about how that this was not the campaign that we recognize. Really, most anything that is displayed in the book. So I think it is just generally pretty unfortunate. There are large swaths of the book that have been debunked.
What do you think her
basic fact
motivation
check.
is? Why would she lie in her book?
Look, I mean, I can't speak to her motivation. Donna Brazile is a friend, and I like her very much. But I do think that this was incredibly unfortunate timing and choice to do this, especially right before the election.
But so you have no guess as to why you're saying that she's not telling the truth?
I'm saying that I think that it made for a good book. But
she said she was disrespected by men on the campaign. She said that they would look at her and nod but not listen to her. He was so obsessed, basically, she said, with his data. And, basically they blew it. They blew the campaign. So she's saying, look, wake up, folks, because nobody listened to me and I knew what we should have been doing. I'm
certainly not going to sit here and diminish her experience on the campaign. What I can say is, though, a member of that campaign, that is certainly not the campaign that I recognize. And I think it is a little, as I said, I think it is unfortunate that this is what Democrats or some Democrats are talking about going into the election.
Jason, what do you think?
Look, it is pretty stunning, the gravity of it. Look, she was very revered. I mean, she has decades with the Democratic Party and revered enough to make her the chairman of the party. So she
helped him out in a pretty tough time, too.
She came in and stepped in at a very, very difficult time. I think the most serious allegation is this joint fundraising agreement. That may have been actually money laundering. I think one of her frustrations is she couldn't bring in impartial staff, that Clinton had signed this document basically saying, I'll help you raise money, but then you have to hire my people. Well, there's a reason why there are campaign contribution limits. You can't do that. That's called money laundering. And I think there's a real legal liability that
Zach's shaking his head. Why, Zach?
No, I mean, first off, the joint fundraising agreements are incredibly common. Donald Trump had one.
Until after the nominee is picked, though.
No, that's not true. Donald Trump had one before he was the nominee.
You can't bypass that and put in your own people.
Well, first off, that has nothing to do with the actual agreement. There was a memorandum of understanding that stated, and I will quote, all activities performed under this agreement will be focused exclusively on preparations for the general election and not the Democratic primary. This is an agreement. This is an agreement that was extended to the Bernie Sanders campaign. They said that if they raised money into the DNC, that they could have a say in how that money was spent. They decided not to do that, but they did decide to complain about it afterward.
All right, guys, I want to get your thoughts on this other issue today of the Comey draft statement. Back on May the 2nd, 2016, he drafted a statement in the investigation of Hillary Clinton saying that there was evidence to support a conclusion that Secretary Clinton and others used the private email server in a manner that was grossly negligent with respect to the handling of classified material. He then came out on July 5th and use this phrase. Watch.
There is evidence that they were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information.
So, Jason, why did grossly negligent become extremely careless, and what difference does it make?
Well, within the statute, you don't have to prove intent. But that's where the FBI director continued to go, is to say, well, we couldn't prove the intent. What's in the statute is gross negligence. So that begs the other question is, if that was in the original statement, why did you take it out? And the other huge question I have is, why were you drafting a statement weeks before you've even interviewed what ended up being nearly 16 people, including the primary suspect herself, Hillary Clinton? If a judge had started to write his opinion before the trial was over, wouldn't we all look suspiciously at that and say, what in the world are you doing?
I got to go. I'm going to give Zach one very quick response.
I think you guys got to pick your attack on James Comey. First, it was that he was too hard on Hillary Clinton, and that's why he needed to be fired. But now it was that he was too easy on Hillary Clinton. You guys got to pick one of your nonsense attack lines.
There's no Democrat that would vote to reconfirm Jim Comey. It should be one thing.
You know what? Let me just say this. What we're talking about is very specific here, and it is the statute language, grossly negligent. So it's a very legitimate question to say, why would that language be removed from the statement several months later? It's a perfectly legitimate question to ask of the Attorney General as he went, head of the FBI as he went through it.
It is simply an attempt to undermine the FBI at a time when they are bringing down indictments
No,
on
it isn't.
Black and white
It's just to look at the language and a question why.
And it's a hypocritical
You can't be afraid to ask
given the way that the people were attacking James Comey.
I don't know why anyone would be afraid to ask questions about why the FBI director would change his language on something like that. It's a perfectly legitimate discussion. Thank you very much, you guys. Good to see you both. So up next, more evidence